The Battle of the Kamenets-Podolsky Pocket, also known as the Hube Pocket, stands as a pivotal moment in World War II's Eastern Front, showcasing the brutal realities of mechanized warfare and strategic envelopment. By early 1944, the tide of the war had decisively turned against the Germans. Following the defeat at Kursk in the summer of 1943 and subsequent retreats across Ukraine, the German army found itself increasingly on the defensive. In the spring of 1944, the Soviet Red Army executed a masterful encirclement that entrapped the German Army's 1st Panzer Army of Army Group South, dealing a significant blow to Germany's military. Army Group South, commanded by Field Marshal Erich von Manstein, was tasked with holding the line against the Red Army. However, the Soviet Spring Offensive, launched in March of 1944, sought to drive a wedge between the German 1st Panzer Army and the rest of Army Group South. The Soviets initiated the attack with the 1st Ukrainian Front and the 2nd Ukrainian Front, pushing towards the Dniester River. Their objective was to cut off the 1st Panzer Army, then positioned around the city of Kamenets-Podolsk in Ukraine. By the 25th of March, the Soviet forces had successfully encircled the 1st Panzer Army, 3 divisions of the 4th Panzer Army, and soldiers from rear services and members of the TOT organization, creating a large pocket that held nearly 220,000 German troops. The encircled forces were under the command of General Hans Valentin Hube, a seasoned panzer leader known for his tactical acumen. Despite the dire situation, Hube orchestrated a determined breakthrough attempt. Over the next 2 weeks, the 1st Panzer Army, heavily reliant on its armored units, fought a grueling retreat through the Soviet lines. The 1st Panzer Army was surrounded on 3 sides and only had one loophole to the south across the Dniester River. But Manstein foresaw that this would only be an escape from one pocket to the next. So he ordered a breakout to the west, right through the marching columns of 2 enemy tank armies and across several rivers running across it, so that the troops could be integrated directly into the front after reaching the German lines. Hube, on the other hand, wanted to march south, as there was still a gap in the front there. On the 28th of March, the breakthrough to the west, ordered by Manstein, began. The Red Army had expected an attempted breakout to the south and was accordingly surprised. Since the bulk of the Soviet combat troops were already far south and west of the Panzer Army, the German troops encountered mainly supply troops as predicted. The breakout itself was a harrowing endeavor marked by constant attacks from the encircling Soviet forces and the challenges of moving heavy armor through mud and swollen rivers. As a means of maintaining control and simplifying the chain of command, Hube consolidated his forces into provisional corps groups. Each group within its zone was to be responsible for both the conduct of attack to the west and the rearguard action in the east. the armored divisions of each corps group were to be spearheading the army's attack, while the infantry divisions covered the rear. Although the Soviet troops managed to cut off large amount of German forces, the conditions for the destruction of the German troops were not created. Both the internal and external fronts were vulnerable and in the most important places. The Soviet Front Command decided to intercept the German withdrawal path and destroy it from blows from all sides. However, the Front Command did not accurately determine the direction of the breakout of the German troops. Despite heavy snowfalls, low supplies, and encirclement, the constant movement of Hube's army meant that panic did not set in. The German troops were still moving in good order and obeying discipline. During the breakout, 399 Soviet tanks and assault guns and 280 guns were destroyed. And the battle is still considered an operational textbook example to illustrate the breakout of armored units from a military encirclement. In over 2 weeks of heavy combat and during horrid weather, the majority of the 1st Panzer Army had managed to escape the encirclement at the cost of losing almost the entire heavy equipment, with only 45 armored vehicles escaping. The destruction of a large number of vehicles which ran out of fuel had a depressing effect on the German soldiers. SS Sturmbannführer Otto Weidinger, one of the commanders of Das Reich Division, described how vehicles were blown up on the night of the 1st of April 1944. On this night, the fuel finally ran out for most of the vehicles, and the commanding officer was forced to give the bitter order to blow up the bulk of the vehicles before crossing the Storm-Rich River. Only the most vital combat vehicles for weapons and ammunition were permitted to go on, insofar the fuel situation permitted. The vehicles which were drawn up around the crossing site in a semicircle were blown up with a heavy heart, and the blazing, widely visible graveyard of the battle group's vehicles was a sad and depressing sight. Each vehicle with the men's few possessions had become to them a small piece of home. As a result of outstanding maintenance and the truly excellent work of the repair echelons, so far we had always succeeded in freezing vehicles which became frozen in, mired in mud, or stuck in the snowdrift. And now they had to be blown up, not because of mechanical defects or other technical problems, but because the lack of fuel. Assets of tremendous value were destroyed in a very short time. However, the fact that the Germans managed to save the majority of their manpower is a testament to Hube's leadership. Although the 1st Panzer Army avoided total destruction, the loss of equipment and territory was a severe blow to the German army's capabilities on the Eastern Front. The Soviet victory of Kamenets Podolsky not only liberated significant portions of Ukraine, but also demonstrated the growing proficiency of the Red Army in executing large-scale encirclements. For the Germans, the battle underscored the vulnerability of their stretched supply lines and the increasingly untenable position of holding large lands of the Soviet Union. The strategic initiative firmly rested with the Soviets, who continued to push westward, setting the stage for the eventual liberation of Eastern Europe. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to support my channel, check out the PayPal donation link in the description or consider becoming a member. To make sure you don't miss my future work, subscribe to my channel please and press the bell notification button. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.